Right, all right, all right, all right. All right, this is not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'm going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to get it done in 98 days. However, we're shooting to get it done before the beginning of the new season starts, which is on September 10th against the Cowboys. Should get it done by then. So we're into this the 70s. We're almost at the 50th season. Woo! I'm almost at the halfway mark, which would be 49 seasons. But this is 1971, the 47th season. Now, I don't know what the roller coaster ride you want to call it, the stock market, whatever, heartbeat, boom, 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 whatever you want to call it, is what it was, right? I mean, 1969, they were 6-8, kind of like 1970, they went up to 9-5. This year, 1971, they down to 4-10. 1986, 1986. What am I doing? 8-6. 1972, they were 8-6. 1973, they were 2-11-1. So it was like this and this and this and this, and so it was. It's 1971. If my math is right, okay, I had to think there for a minute, which is not good. If you include the preseason. 1971, the Giants were 4-16. Not too good. They have 4-10 regular season, 0-6 in the preseason. Preseason, but still, you at least like to get a couple wins. But this is the culmination. This is 1971 was a lot like the past 10 years or so with the Giants. One word starts with an I. Injuries. The Giants the past 10 years, whatever. I guess the last 10 years, I think they've led the league. Combined injuries, the games missed, and all that. Well, 1971, they lost a lot of guys missed time due to injuries. The biggest one was the main man. Well, not Fran Tarkenton was the captain of the ship, but Ron Johnson. They had no running game whatsoever. Ron Johnson, he got injured in preseason. He missed a boatload of time. He missed it. He got injured in preseason. Now, remember, they played 6 preseason games back then. So chances of getting injured in preseason were a little high when you're playing 6 preseason games. However, he missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He missed the first 6 games of the season. He played 2 games in a row. He played against Minnesota. He played against San Diego. Then he missed the final 6 games of the season. Once again, in the San Diego game, he got injured. Once again, he missed the rest of the season. So as we forge ahead and look into the this season here for the Giants, I should show you. I mean, the running game was just non-existent. I mean, as I said, you couple everything together. A 4-10 season, actually, and actually at one point they were actually 4-5. Then they lost the last 5 games, so they finished 4-10. But I mean, a very mediocre team at best. They have one Hall of Famer, which was Fran Tarkenton, who this would be his final season with the Giants. The Giants would trade him back to Minnesota. He was disgruntled. The Giants traded him back. We got Bob Graham. I know we got somebody else. I can't remember, but we got Norm Snead, Bob Graham, and I know we got somebody else. We got a draft pick as well. But just a very mediocre team. Once again, another horrible, capital H, horrible draft. I mean, we're going on, years and years and years of horrible drafts. I mean, you might get a guy here and a guy there or something, but that a lot of that may. I mean, if you can draft well, I mean, man, you were golden. The Dallas Cowboys never made any trades. Never. They built their team through their draft. Never made trades back then. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 1974, they drafted 4 Hall of Famers in one draft, 1974. Lambert, Swan, Stallworth, and Webster, the center. 4, the greatest draft in NFL history. You draft 4 Hall of Famers. I said, if you could draft, well, I mean, then there's George Allen. George Allen didn't like rookies because he didn't like the learning curve. They'd have to, they'd make mistakes the first year or so as they're learning, and he couldn't handle that. So George Allen would trade away all those draft picks for veteran players. That's a lot of sometimes what the Giants were doing a little bit of. But I mean, the Giants, the drafts were just horrible. The cupboards were bare. They were not restocking their shelves with quality players, and it showed. It had injuries. They had no running game, and it just it all culminated in a 4-10 season. As I said, I mean, the Giants were actually 4-5 at one point. The thing is, when I was a kid, 1970 was my first season I ever remember watching. So I'm thinking, they were 9-4, the Giants, going into the last game of the season. They were 9-4. They won the final game of the season against the Rams. They would have won. They would have been 10-4, won the division, and gone to the playoffs. So I'm thinking, Fran Tarkenton's the man. I just fell in love with it. I don't know why, that little NY on the side, the blue helmets and the jerseys. I just fell in love with that. So I'm like, man, they lost the last game of the 1970 season to the Rams, 31-3. So they got knocked out of the playoffs. They were 9-5. So I'm thinking, okay, we got a good team. Well, we'll go to the playoffs this year. Yeah. No. As they say in the Water Boy, Mama's wrong again, isn't she? Yeah. So no, nothing could be further from the truth. Another one of the problems the Giants had was a new coach. There was a new sheriff in town. His name was George Allen, coach of the Washington Redskins. He coached the Los Angeles Rams from 66-70. During those 5 seasons, the Rams played the Giants 3 times. They beat the Giants soundly all 3 times. And then, so George Allen was on a streak beating the Giants. So with the Rams beating the Giants 3 times in a row. Then when he started coaching the Washington Redskins, because they were the Redskins back then, starting in 1971, George Allen and the Redskins beat the Giants the next 11 times. So George Allen beat the Giants 14 times in a row before the Giants finally beat him in the second time they faced each other in the 1976 season. So 1971, 1972, 1973, 1974. Hope you're getting a feel on this. 3-day, 74, 75, and the first game is 76. And there was an opening day of 76. Coming at you, 3-day. George Allen and the Redskins beat the Giants 11 times in a row. So 71, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They swept them 5 years in a row. So, and between that and losing to the Cowboys almost every game, I mean, there's you can just chalk up a bunch of, it just goes to show you how ungodly, absolutely freaking pathetic it was that the Giants beat the Eagles in 1972 in Yankee Stadium. That was the last time that the Giants would beat the Eagles at home in the 70s. The rest of the 70s, they tied in 1973, 74-79. The Eagles beat the Giants every time in New York or Jersey. It was just ungodly, just horrible. The Cardinals had good teams back then. Don Coryell came in, had a very good offense. So the Cardinals beat the Giants on a yearly basis still. It was just, so out of there was multiple times the Giants, their divisional record was just pathetic, absolutely horrible. Because the Cowboys were beating them, the Eagles were beating them, the Redskins were beating them, and the Cardinals were beating them. So let's forge. Let's look at the preseason game. There's 6 losses that they had in preseason. They started up against the Houston Oilers. They went to the Astrodome. They lost 35-6. Second preseason game, they went to Schaefer Stadium. They played the New England Patriots because they just changed in New England. They were the Boston Patriots. Right before and from their inception in 1960, from 1960 and 1970, they were the Boston Patriots. They just changed over 1971 to the New England Patriots, and New England Patriots. They took Jim Plunkett was the number 1 overall pick, so he was the starting quarterback for them. He was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Then they played the Jets at the Yale Bowl, their yearly game against the Jets, which started in 1969. The Jets won in 69, the Giants won in 70, the preseason games. And then the Jets won here in 1971. They won 27-14. Following week, the Giants and the Eagles, the Eagles would win. They played a game at Palmer Stadium. I'm going to read this in just a second. Princeton, New Jersey, and Palmer Stadium. They played like many years in a row. This would be, I think, the 10th year in a row. The Eagles would win 26-14. So, it says here this was the Giants and the Eagles will meet August 28th in the 10th annual New Jersey JC football game in Princeton's Palmer Stadium. So the Eagles and the Giants in 1971. This was the 10th consecutive season that the two teams played in preseason. And it was, it was for a very, very good cause. Two classy organizations, although I can't stand the Eagles, but for a very, very good cause. The Eagles have won 5 of the 9 games played in the series. The game is played for the benefit of educational, youth, and various other charitable activities in New Jersey. So, I mean, give kudos to the Eagles, right, for coming to New Jersey to play the Giants. The Giants at that time weren't part of New Jersey either. So, but give credit to the Eagles. Give Eagles credit where credit's due for coming to New Jersey to play a charitable game that benefited, educational, youth, and various other charitable activities in New Jersey. So, credit to the Eagles. Credit where credit's due. It said it is new. I mean, this was article was in 1971, right? So, but it says it is New Jersey's largest charity fundraising event at that time. Let's see, last year, meaning 1970, over $160,000 was donated to more than 500 charities. So the game is, they played a preseason game, against one another, and it was for a charity. So, kudos to the to two classy organizations. As once again, I despise the Eagles, but credit to them and credit to the Giants for their charity, for their fundraising. Outstanding job. Way to go. So that's why the Giants and the Eagles always played every year up to a certain point. It was somewhere in the early. Let's see here. Let's just check it out here. 72. Okay, yep, they played. All right, let's see here next season. That was 73. I know somewhere in the 70s they stopped it. All right, 73 they did. 74 they did. 75. Nope. That was it. 1974. 1975 they stopped playing. 75 the Giants played the Patriots, the Chargers, the Jets, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Dolphins. So actually it was weird because if you look at it, the Giants in 1975, all 6 of their preseason games were teams from the AFC, right? The Patriots, the Chargers, the Jets, the Steelers went over to the AFC, the Browns went to the AFC, and the Dolphins. So they from, I guess it was 1961 or 62, they started the game, the charity game with the Giants and the Eagles at Palmer Stadium in Princeton, New Jersey. In 1974, it ended. So I know it didn't go on forever. Obviously, because they're not playing obviously not playing the Eagles no more in preseason. All right, so then the next week, the next 2 games, the Giants, let's see, the 5th. They played the Browns. They lost 30-7, and then they lost the last one to the Steelers. They lost 20-3. So not a very good preseason at all. And that was kind of an omen of things to come. Let's see here. Where are we at now? 1971, the New York Giants. Now, what did they do here? They scored 16 points per game. They gave up 26 points per game. As I said, once again, very mediocre team at best. They had a bunch of injuries, which really hurt them. I said they had no running game because Ron Johnson was injured. Ron Johnson played in 2 games. He played against the Minnesota Vikings and and against the San Diego Chargers. And then in the San Diego Charger game, he got injured. He had what do you have, 159 yards for the season? Where are we at here? Ron Johnson, 156. I'm sorry. Averaged 4.9 yards a carry. He was injured, and he averaged 5 yards a carry. He had 32 carries in the 2 games, 156 yards, 1 touchdown, averaged 4.9 yards per carry, and he was injured. So, I mean, you can just kind of imagine. I mean, at that rate, 70, no, that's over 70. That's close to 75. That's over 75. So at that rate, in 2 games to get 156 yards at that pace for a 14-game schedule, that's what they played back then, he would have had 1,000 yards rushing. But it just goes to show you, how devastated it was, because their leading rusher was Bobby Duhan with 344 yards. Nobody on the team had 100 carries. Bobby Duhan led the team with 93 carries. Tucker Frederickson had 242 yards. Rocky Thompson, their first overall pick, we'll go over that in a minute. He had 54 carries for 177 yards. Charlie Evans, he was a rookie. He had 48 carries for 171 yards. Joe Morrison, the ageless wonder, he had 38 carries for 131 yards. I mean, just horrible. They had 1,400 yards rushed, 1,461. So basically a little over 100 yards a game. But back then, that was not enough. I mean, because it was basically a running league for the most part. You needed to run and pound the ball. The Giants averaged 3.7 yards a carry. I mean, they gave up 4.6 yards a carry, which was not good. They gave up over 2,000 yards rushing. They gave up 147 yards a game running the ball. It just you couldn't get it done. I mean, like almost everybody was injured. Tucker Frederickson missed 4 games. This was his final season. He was the number 1 overall pick in the 1965 draft. Due to injuries, he retired after the 71 season. Tucker Frederickson missed 4 games. Bobby Duhan, their leading rusher, 344 yards. I mean, how unbelievably pathetic is that back then? He missed a game. Charlie Evans, he missed 8 games. Joe Morrison missed a game. Ron Johnson missed 12 games. Fran Tarkenton missed a game, but that's because they started Randy Johnson the final game of the season against the Eagles. Junior Coffey, I mean, he only played in 6 games. I mean, Rich Houston, their receiver, he missed a game. Bob Tucker missed 2 games. Bob Tucker missed 2 games, and he led the NFC in receiving. That was the first time ever a tight end led the NFC in receiving. He had 59 receptions, and he missed 2 games. If he played those other 2 games, he would have had well over 60 receptions, well over. He had 59. I mean, I know nowadays receivers get 59 catches in a game, but back then 59 was a lot in 14 games, a lot. Let's see. I mean, Don Herman was one of the receivers. He missed 5 games. Clifton McNeil, who was a very good contributor. Actually, he got traded to the Washington, but Don Herman missed 5 games. Where are we at here? Clifton McNeil. I think he got traded to Washington this year. Was 71 or 72? When did he get traded? 71. Yeah, he played. Okay, yeah, he played 6 games with the Giants, and he finished up the season with the Redskins. So he only played 6 games for the Giants, but then the final 8 he played with the Redskins. So that's why he wasn't on the team. But the Giants had a lot of injuries, lots of injuries. Even on the defensive side, they had some injuries. Also, this would be the final season for Fred Dreyer, their 1969 number 1 overall pick. He didn't want to play in New York. I'm not sure if he didn't like the city, or maybe it was the organization he wasn't too fond of, or maybe it was a combination of both. But he didn't want to play for the Giants. And so after 1971, I think they had him for 3 years. He packed up and left and went to the West Coast, and he started playing for the Rams. Let's see, what do we got here? Sacks. The Giants had their defense had a grand total of 18 sacks. They gave up 40. I mean, just Interceptions. They had their defense got 15 interceptions, which back then is not very good. The Giants threw 25 interceptions. What did Fran Tarkenton do? He had 11 touchdown passes and 21 interceptions. I mean, just overall, just horrible. Pete Gogolak was 6 out of 17 kicking field goals. I mean, just horrible. His long for the year was 37 yards. I mean, just unbelievably horrible. Just, everything. I said a lot of injuries, very mediocre team leads to, obviously very poor results. Very, very poor results. Now, I want to do the draft here, the team draftees. Now, as I said, they took Rocky Thompson with the first overall pick. Now, he was a very good kickoff returner. They tried to use him as like a wide receiver and a running back and all, but he was not that, and especially he was not a first round pick. He was very fast. He on kickoff returns, he was always very exciting, but he was not a number one pick. He was not a running back. He was not a wide receiver. He was a very fast and very good kickoff return. Now, the thing is with him, he played basically 2 seasons for the Giants. He played, this is the first overall pick, first round pick. He played 71. He played 72. The first game of 73, he got injured against the Houston Oilers, and he never played for the Giants ever again. So if you look at Jim Files was the Giants pick in 1970. He played 4 years for him. Then he retired to become a priest or a minister. 1971, their first pick, played 2 seasons for the Giants. 1969, Fred Dreyer played 3 seasons for the Giants. 1968, the Giants didn't have a first-round pick. 1967, the Giants didn't have a first-round pick. 1965, their first-round pick played till 1971, and he was just injured. He had to retire. 1972, they had 2 first-round picks. They had Eldridge Small and Larry Jacobson. Eldridge Small played like 2 years, I think, for the Giants. Larry Jacobson played 2 and parts of a third, but then his career was over because of injuries. Let's see, 1973, they didn't have a first-round pick because they traded it away to the Browns to get Jack Gregory. 1974, they took John Hicks, who was a good pick, very, very good pick for the Giants in the first-round pick, but he only played 4 seasons for the Giants. 1975, they didn't have a first-round pick because they traded away to the Dallas Cowboys, who wound up taking, Randy White, a future Hall of Fame defensive tackle, because the Giants gave it away to the Cowboys because they got Craig Morton, who only played like 2.5 seasons for the Giants. So they traded away a first-round pick for somebody who's only played 2.5 years for the Giants. 76, the Giants drafted Troy Archer, who played 3 seasons for the Giants, and tragically he died in an automobile or truck accident. He drove his truck skidded off the road and drove into a pole, I believe it was, on a rain-soaked road. I mean, the 77, that was the Gordon King, who had a nice lengthy career, but he was not a first-round pick. He was a big tackle. So it wasn't until like Phil Simms of 79 when they actually got a first-round pick that actually played for the Giants for a length of time. I mean, they went a long time between first-round picks that actually played long for the Giants and gave them a lot of production. So, it was just the picks were just horrible. They took Ron Hornsby in the 3rd round. Now, he played what he played. Played 4 seasons for the Giants, but he was an okay linebacker. But, he was just okay. He played 4 seasons. They took Dave Tipton, who was a defensive end, who played 5-6 years, it looks like, but only a couple of them were with the Giants. Then there was the 5th, 6th, 7th round. They didn't have picks. They took Ted Gregory, who never played. Then they took Ed Thomas, who never played. Then they took Henry Reed, who played a couple of years for the Giants. He was nothing super spectacular. He was a defensive end. He was number 80. He was nothing super spectacular. Then they took Mark Ellison, a guard. They took Tom Blanchard, a punter, to replace the punter that they had from last year. So Tom Blanchard wound up being an okay punter for the Giants, but he was only playing for the Giants for, what was it? Because then we got Dave Jennings. So Tom Blanchard played till 81, So the Giants drafted him. He played 3 seasons for the Giants. Then he kicked for the New Orleans Saints in Tampa Bay. So we took, Tom Blanchard as a punter, and he only played for the Giants for 3 seasons. Then we took Dave Roller. And Charlie Evans, we had him. He played till 1974, but he was never a major. He had 644 yards rushing in his career. In 4 seasons. So he averaged like 160 yards a year rushing. Then we took Jim Wright, Dick Gibbs, and Coleman Zeno, who only played in 2 games, which were both in 1971. He wound up with 5 catches for 97 yards from Grambling State in round number 17. For whatever reason, he was able to catch the ball. He was fast. But he only played the 1 year, and that was it. So, once again, a horrible draft by the New York Giants. The cupboards were bare, and they went grocery shopping, and they came back, and basically they left all their groceries at the store. So when they came home, their bags were empty, and they restocked the empty cupboards with absolutely nothing. So the cupboards were still bare. And, once again, you just get horrible results. Let's see here. This is that's what we got here. The 1971 Giants. Then after this, I'll go over the game by games for the Giants here. The 1971 New York Giants season was this season's 47th season in the history of the National Football League. It was the 47th for them, the 52nd for the NFL, because the NFL started in 1920. The Giants started in 1925. The Giants had a 4-10 record for the season and finished in last place in the NFL in the NFC Eastern Division. The NFC East. The Giants selected Rocky Thompson in the 1971 NFL Draft with the 18th overall pick. And the thing that kind of just gets you is that the next pick. Wait. Can we have it there? Can I have it? No, don't have the draft there. No. But one was Jack Youngblood, and the other one was Jack Tatum. Or Jim Youngblood. Jim Youngblood and Jack Tatum. Let me pop this up here. 19. Oh, there we go. It was just. There we go. The draft. All right, here we go. So the Giants picked number 18. They took Rocky Thompson. Then after that, the next pick was Jack Tatum. The you could easily say borderline Hall of Famer, Jack Tatum. The Raiders took him, and the Giants could have used Jack Tatum. Then the next pick after that, the Rams took Jack Youngblood, a Hall of Famer. Right? But so the Giants settled on Rocky Thompson. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. All right. Let's see here. New York began the regular season with 2-1, which we'll go over in a second. Before posting a 2-9 mark in its final 11 games, the team was affected by numerous injuries, a lot of injuries, including a thigh injury suffered by running back Ron Johnson, who had gained more than 1,000 yards in 1970. Ron Johnson would be healthy in 72, and once again, he would go over the 1,000-yard mark. So it was just the injuries. That's all it was. It wasn't like he took a step back or not like that. He was there. He would have had another 1,000-yard season. The Giants would have won probably a couple more games if Ron Johnson was healthy. He was not. The team struggled mightily. Back then, if you didn't have if you didn't have a running game, you struggled. The 1971 season was the last for quarterback Frank Tarkenton with the Giants. After he requested a trade, the Giants dealt him back to the Minnesota Vikings in 1972 for 3 players and a pair of draft picks. So, I'll go over that, I guess, tomorrow when we go over the 1972 season, which is a good season because the Giants wound up 8-6. But so let's go over the Giants games here, right? Then I'll wrap this up. I'll go over the playoffs, the divisions and the playoffs and all. All right, so the Giants started off there 1-0. They won a shootout in Green Bay. It was the first time, I think, since the 50s that the Giants actually beat Green Bay during the regular season, because they didn't beat Green Bay when Vince Lombardi was there from 59 to 67. So I think it was the first time since the mid-50s the Giants actually beat the Packers. Maybe it was 58 that the Giants beat the Packers. So they beat the Packers in opening day 42-40. What a game. A very exciting game. And the Giants just pulled it out. I'll just try to keep stuff short here because let's see. Oh, my goodness. What are we at? We're up to half an hour already. What's up, Teddy? Was last year before steroids. Was the last tie game for the Oilers and Titans. Oilers and Titans. Now, 71 was the last tie game for the Oilers and Titans. Oilers. Houston Oilers. Well, actually, the Houston Oilers in 1972 and 73, the only team in NFL history had back-to-back one-win seasons. They were horrible. 72, 73, horrible. Back-to-back one-win seasons, 1-13. Whew, talk about bad. Holy cow. All right, so then, as I said, the Giants were 1-0. They beat the Packers 42-40. Then, of course, then came the streak where they started losing to the Washington Redskins. George Allen was the coach, so this was game 1 of 11 games in a row that the Giants would lose to the Washington Redskins. So the second game of the season, Washington Redskins came into New York, into the Yankee Stadium, and they beat the Giants 30-3. The Giants rebounded the following week on the road against St. Louis, against the Cardinals. On the road, the Giants would win their second road game. They would win 21-20, a close game. So now the Giants are 2-1. Okay, 2 road games, 2 victories. Looking good, baby. Here we go. Nope. Game 4, they would play the Cowboys. They would lose on Monday night. That was the second Monday night game for the Giants. The Giants were totally overmatched in that game. Couldn't stop the Cowboys had 6 turnovers. Other than that, the Giants couldn't stop them. Cowboys just kept marching up and down the field, and they just kept turning the ball over. Their defense was horrible. Gave up 222 yards rushing. They're absolutely horrible. So the Giants lost Monday Night Football. So that's their second Monday night game. They lost 1970, and then they lost 1971. 1972, they would stop the streak. They would beat the Eagles 27-12 at the Veterans Stadium to get their first ever Monday Night Football victory. So the Giants lost the Monday night game to the Cowboys 20-13. Now they stood at 2-2. The following week, the Colts would come to town, and they would just annihilate the Giants 31-7. Now the Giants are 2-3. The following week, the Giants would play in Philadelphia. It was very wet, very wet. The Giants would lose 23-7. So now the Giants are 2-4. The Giants would lose the following week at home to Minnesota. The Giants would give up like a last-minute touchdown pass from Norm Snead to Bob Grimm. It was like a 55-yard touchdown pass in like the final minute or so, minute and a half or so to go in the game. But oddly enough, both Norm Snead and Bob Grimm would be traded to the Giants in 1972. So we gave them Fran Tarkenton, and we got Norm Snead and Bob Grimm. But so the Giants lost a tough game to the Vikings. Very, very tough game, 17-10. Following week, the Giants would finally get a victory. They would get their third victory of the year. Then the Chargers came to town. They would beat the Chargers 35-17. Then the Giants, they had back-to-back victories. They went on the road once again in Atlanta with 34 seconds left to go. Fran Tarkenton on. The Giants won 21-17. The Giants were trailing 17-14. They were at the 2-yard line, 34 seconds to go in the game, 4th and goal. They could have kicked the game, tying field goal, and just gone home with the tie, but no, they decided to go for it. So Fran Tarkenton at the line of scrimmage, Atlanta had their guys lined up, right? They had a linebacker, or maybe it wasn't a linebacker or a safety or somebody who was staying at the line, basically at the line of scrimmage because there's, the end zone, right? His responsibility was to cover Joe Morrison out of the backfield. Well, Fran Tarkenton raised his foot, sent Morrison in motion. Morrison took a step forward, went in motion toward the left. The guy, I forgot it was a safety or cornerback, went with Morrison in motion. So he went out of the pictures. There was a gaping hole in the Atlanta Falcons defense. So Fran Tarkenton he saw that. Obviously, he sent him in motion on purpose to get that gaping hole. Took a step back. The hole opened up like Moses parted the Red Sea. He ran into the end zone untouched. The Giants wound up winning 21-17. Very exciting game. So now the Giants were 4-5. The Giants lost the following week in Pittsburgh 17-13. The Giants could have won that one. They were winning 13-10 in the second half. Pete Gogolak was going to attempt like a 48 or 49-yard field goal. Ball gets snapped back to Fran Tarkenton. He gets the ball. I guess it's wet or something like that. He has a hard time getting it down. Pete Gogolak runs up to kick it, but as Tarkenton's like fumbling with the ball, Pete Gogolak stops. Fran Tarkenton, I guess, finally gets the ball, notices Pete Gogolak's not going to kick it. Fran Tarkenton gets up, starts running around a little bit, throws the ball downfield, just haphazardly throws the ball downfield, gets picked off. The dude runs it back like 65 yards for a touchdown, and the Steelers wind up winning 17-13 because of that interception run back for a touchdown. Oh, my goodness. All right, then the Giants lost at home to the Cardinals 24-7. Then the Giants went on the road and played in Washington, and this would be the second time in a row the Redskins would beat the Giants 23-7. Now the Giants are 4-8. The Giants would host the Dallas Cowboys at home. They would lose 42-14. Now the Giants are 4-9, and then the final game of the season, the Giants would lose 41-28 to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Giants finished at 4-10. The Giants did not start Fran Tarkenton in that game. They started Randy Johnson. As I said, I'm not sure if it's because Fran wanted a trade or what or but they sat Fran down on purpose and they put Randy Johnson, or because maybe the season was over with and they just wanted to put Randy Johnson in there. I'm not exactly sure, but Fran Tarkenton had a consecutive game streak, and it wound up getting snapped in that game because they sat him down. But it is what it is. But so Fran Tarkenton's final game with the New York Giants, he was on the sideline. He didn't even play. So the Giants finished at 4-10, and I said once again, it's just a combination of everything. Mediocre team, a lot of injuries, no running game, bad drafts. You get 4-10. Alex Webster was not a phenomenal coach. The Giants didn't have any phenomenal coaches on the team or anything like that. You get 4-10. That's what you get. So, and then they would trade away their future Hall of Fame quarterback. They would trade him away, and then they'd have nobody on the team. I mean, no Hall of Famers or nothing like that. So then, things just. So it was the wilderness years. Absolutely just horrible. Absolutely horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But let's see. We'll go over the standings here. In the AFC East, the Dolphins would win. They were 10-3-1. The Colts would come in second place. They were 10-4. So they were the wild card team. In the AFC Central, the Browns would win with a record of 9-5. And then the Kansas City Chiefs would win the AFC West at a record of 10-3-1. So in those playoffs, the AFC would wind up being on Christmas Day. The Dolphins and the Chiefs would play each other in the longest game in NFL history. And the Chiefs the Dolphins would prevail 27-24 in 6 periods, double overtime. Long game, great game. I remember watching it Christmas Day. It was so long. I was sitting there watching. I was pulling for the Chiefs. I only because I like their red uniforms. The color red, I just got a kick out of it. I liked it, so I was pulling for the Chiefs. But I remember watching it, and the game was going on, and I went out and we had dinner. We ate dinner, maybe had dessert, this, that, and the other thing. I came back out and I sat back down, and the game was still on. I mean, it was just like, what is going on? It was so long, but it was a great, great, great game. I was lucky as a kid to be able to see it. The Baltimore Colts beat the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. What was that score? Was that 20-3? What the heck was that? 20-3. Baltimore beat Cleveland 20-3. So that made the Baltimore Colts and the Miami Dolphins face off against each other in the AFC Championship game. Miami would win 21-0. So now Miami is going to the Super Bowl. Over in the NFC, the Cowboys would win the NFC East with a record of 11-3. The Redskins were 9-4-1, so they were the wild card team. I mean, George Allen came in and right away, he took them right to the playoffs right away. Minnesota won the NFC Central with a record of 11-3. And in the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers would just edge out the Rams with a record of 9-5. The 49ers were 9-5. The Rams were 8-5-1. So like half a game, right? They just edged out the Rams. So that made the 49ers, Vikings, Redskins, and Cowboys in the playoffs. So in the playoffs, you have the 49ers beat the Redskins at Candlestick Park 24-20. Very good game, very close game. The Cowboys would beat the Vikings in Metropolitan Stadium in Minnesota 20-12. The Cowboys had like 180 yards of total offense. The Vikings had like over 300 yards of offense. The problem was the Vikings turned the ball over like 5 or 6 times. That's what did them in. The Vikings outplayed them yardage-wise, but with all the turnovers that they had, that's what wound up costing them. So the Cowboys won 20-12, and then so that set up a 49er Cowboy championship game for the second season in a row. The year before that, 1970, the Dallas Cowboys went into San Francisco in Kezar Stadium, and the final game ever in Kezar Stadium, the Cowboys would beat the 49ers 17-10. Well, this was the second consecutive championship game between the Cowboys and the 49ers, and it was the second consecutive time that the Cowboys would beat the 49ers. This time was in Dallas, right, in their new stadium, Texas Stadium. They would win 14-3. So that set up a Miami Dolphin Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl, which wound up being Super Bowl VI. And it wasn't much of a Super Bowl. The Cowboys would wind up winning. They were what were they? They were up 10-3 at halftime. They scored 1 touchdown in the third quarter. They scored another touchdown in the fourth quarter. I believe I think Calvin Hill even fumbled the ball like inside like the 2-yard line or 3-yard line or so. See what he always had a he liked to jump a lot of times. Like when he was going to get hit or he'd get to the line of scrimmage, he would just jump up in the air or whatever. But a lot of times he would maybe fumble the ball. And that's what he did here. As I said, that the Cowboys were primed to score another touchdown and really put the game away. And he got inside the 2-yard line. I think they handed it off to him. He got into the line of scrimmage, jumped up in the air, fumbled the ball. Miami got the ball back. Didn't matter because the Dolphins only scored 3 points. The Cowboys, that was the Cowboys' day. They lost so many games in a row, championship games. They lost the 1970 Super Bowl to the Colts 16-13. This was the Cowboys' first Super Bowl victory, and this was their day in the sun. They without question, they wound up beating. They beat up on the Dolphins. The Cowboys were the best team in the NFL, and they won it. But this would be the beginning for the Dolphins, because the Dolphins got to the playoffs in 1970, 1971. The Dolphins got to the Super Bowl, lost. However, 1972, 1973, the Dolphins would go to the Super Bowl and they would win. 1972, they were undefeated. That was their 17-0 season. So it was a good season, very, very good season overall, very exciting season. It wasn't much of a Super Bowl, and unfortunately, wasn't much of a year for the Giants. They said they were 4-5 at one point, but I said it's just everything. Very mediocre team, a lot of injuries, no running game, no draft. No good draft picks at all. The cupboard is bare, and after the draft is over, the cupboard's still bare. So, that's what you get. You get a 4-10 season. But somehow, remarkably, the Giants would rebound in 1972 and have a winning season at 8-6. So, somehow. But then after that, it was all just downhill until 1981. But anyway, that pretty much wraps up the 1971 season. I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1972 and winning season for the Giants, which just happened to be the 48th season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.